Hey friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and today we are headed to the Toledo Zoo. Everybody, including Adam, is packed up and in the van. And before we go, we did a lot of meal prep to make this day happen today. We are a food allergy family. My son has anaphylactic dairy and peanut allergies, so when we go places like this, we can't just eat on the go while we're out. I have to pack everything that this family of 10 will need for the day. So we did a lot of prep to make it happen. And why don't I show you that before we head out to the zoo? Our first recipe my son David is going to make for us. He is my little baker and he wanted to make some dairy-free glazed donuts. So I will put the recipe in the description. He started out by putting 4 teaspoons of yeast and a half a cup of sugar. We are doing a double batch, so you would have this if you wanted to have a smaller batch for a smaller family. Then he's adding 2 cups of warm water to that and letting that yeast activate with the sugar and the water. Once that's done, he'll begin adding in his other ingredients. We're going to start by adding just 1 teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to add our fat. We're doing 1 cup of olive oil. If you could have dairy, you could do butter, any kind of oil you want. We make these dairy-free due to an allergy in our family, so we are using regular olive oil. Then to that, we're going to add 4 eggs. We are using duck eggs that are homegrown here from our homestead. I like using duck eggs for baking. I think they just make a superior product. So we added our 4 duck eggs. Now we need to add our flour. We're going to do a total of 8 cups of flour. And then we're going to get this in our Bosch mixer here and let this mix and knead until the dough is nice and soft. I love using my Bosch mixer for large batches like this. If you're a large family, I highly recommend it. Once David was satisfied with how mixed and kneaded it was, he got it out and he's just going to work it with his hands here for a little bit. And we're going to put this in the fridge and let it rest for 2 hours. When he pulled it out of the fridge, this is what it looked like. And here comes the best part, is punching down the dough. There's something so satisfying about doing that. Now that he has that punched down, he's floured our counter here, and he's going to get the dough on the counter, and he's going to use the rolling pin to kind of flatten it out to get ready to cut it into our donut shapes. Now you can use anything to cut these donuts into whatever shape you would like. A large wide mouth canning ring works really well, and then you can just use a smaller circle to cut out the center of your donut. We have this really nifty donut cutter. He got it as a gift a couple years ago when one of his grandparents knew that he was really into baking donuts and they wanted to get him some fun tools as a gift. But if you don't have the donut cutter, just use whatever you have. For years prior to having this donut cutter, we just used, like I mentioned, a wide mouth canning ring, which is about the perfect size. And then we would just use a smaller bottle to cut out the smaller hole in the center. Now, once he has all of his donut shapes cut, he's going to cover these and let them rise for 1 hour before we're going to fry them. And we are frying them in regular olive oil. So you could use whatever fat you would like, and he's just frying them until one side turns kind of golden brown, and then he flips it over and does the other side. And he is getting kind of his groupies are forming around him, wanting to have a taste of whatever tasty treats he is currently working on in the kitchen. They've learned that David makes delicious food, and so if you hang around long enough, he will let you taste test whatever it is that he's working on. So the little boys tend to kind of flock around him. So once he has all of the donuts fried, it's time to make his glaze. He just uses powdered sugar, a little bit of vanilla extract, and some almond milk. No real measurements. He just gets it to whatever desired texture he likes here. And then he just simply dips those glazed donuts into the top and let it kind of drip down on his drying racks here. And then he will typically take the donut holes that he cut out, kind of run those along the parchment paper underneath from the drips and kind of keep that from being wasted so that those donut holes are also covered in glaze. And he just gets a really beautiful dairy-free donut. I'm so proud of his work here. These are going to be a great breakfast for us. The next snack we need for our trip are some fruit gummies. I pulled out a quart of home canned cranberry juice and a pint of Concord grape juice, and we have these fruit gummy molds that I will link in the video description for you. We are straining out the solids of the fruit, and the goal is to get 2 cups of fruit juice here into our little pan. To that, we are adding 4 teaspoons of lemon juice, and we're going to add 4 tablespoons of honey. We need to get all of those ingredients on the stove until that honey kind of melts down and it warms up enough so that we can add our gelatin. We are going to add 6 tablespoons of gelatin. I will also put this recipe in the description for you. This recipe came from a friend of mine on Instagram, and I want you to check out her account. And so we are just adding that gelatin so that none of it clumps together. And once we're done, we can use these little droppers that came with the fruit gummy molds and just simply fill them up. This is a healthy alternative to those fruit snacks that kids absolutely love. This is using, home canned juices, honey instead of the high fructose corn syrup. It can be organic if you want it to. Just a really delicious, easy treat to make. In total, I think this took us 15 minutes to put together, and it was really pretty simple. So once we get all of these molds filled, we are going to put them in the fridge and let them set. They're so tiny, they don't take very long at all. It was maybe an hour, and then I was able to pop them out and get them into a container. And these are the snacks that we are going to take with us to the zoo for when the children want a treat and we don't want to pay zoo prices for a snack. We can just pop some of these out and they can have a nice, healthy, homemade snack while we are at the zoo. So I highly encourage you to check out the recipe in the description. And if your children love these little fruit gummies like this, it's really easy to make them yourself. And look at how cute they turn out. They look just like store-bought gummies. These are in the shape of fruits. You can buy molds in all different kinds of shapes. You can buy them in the shape of gummy bears if that's something your children enjoy. And they're so delicious, they won't even know that they're not the unhealthy, store brand gummies that they're used to. So Benjamin absolutely loved them, and I'm sure he'll enjoy them more at the zoo. Now we need to make some bread. So we are back with our yeast here. We are going to put 4 tablespoons of yeast. We are going to make 2 loaves of sandwich bread to take with us on our trip. So we're starting out with 4 tablespoons of yeast. To that, we are going to add 2 cups of warm water. And then once again with our honey, we're going to add 4 tablespoons of honey. And just like with those donuts, we need to let this kind of sit for about 10 minutes, let that yeast activate. And once it gets nice and bubbly and yeasty smelling, we can begin to add the rest of our ingredients. We're going to start with 1 teaspoon of salt. To that, next we are going to add our fat. We are going to do a half a cup of olive oil. And if you like to use another fat like butter or any other oil, once again, you can use those if that's what you prefer to use. Finally, we need to add our flour. We are going to add 7 cups of flour to make our 2 loaves of bread. And then we're going to put that Bosch mixer to use once again. We're going to let it mix the dough together, let it do some of the kneading. And then once we get it to the desired texture, I can go ahead and take it out and work it with my hands. That's what I typically like to do with my mixer. I like to let it start the process for me. But there really is something about bread making that you kind of want to get your hands in there and feel the dough to get it to a good texture that will really make the kind of loaf of bread that you desire. So there's just something about kneading dough too that is fun for me, I guess. We let that rise in a covered bowl for an hour. Then we're going to punch it down and we're going to get our bread pans here nice and greased up. I'm using some lard here to coat these bread pans. And then we are going to divide our dough into 2, get them in the loaf pans, let them rise for an hour, and then bake it on 350 for about 40 minutes. And when we're done, we have this beautiful, delicious homemade sandwich bread that is a lot healthier for us than anything we could buy in the store. So I've done a lot of my food prep. It's the morning of our zoo trip. The children are enjoying David's delicious donuts here. I also cooked up a couple pounds of our friend's bacon that we buy in bulk every year, and the kids had a nice, nourishing breakfast here. I also needed to pack our lunch, so let me show you the food that we were taking with us on the trip. I packed up a loaf and a half of that sandwich bread that I just showed you that I made. With it, we are going to make sun butter sandwiches. And a couple of my people in my house like to put pickled banana peppers on their sun butter sandwiches. So we brought some of that. I hard boiled a dozen eggs. Of course, we have our delicious little fruit gummies to use for snacks while we're gone. Last weekend, Adam picked up several bushels of apples from his grandpa's orchard, and we have other fruits here. And then along with that, we need to bring a gallon of apple cider so that the children will have something to drink besides the water that we're bringing.
What? I said I was going to beatbox all the way there.
I am the driver. Adam's the DJ, apparently. You kids ready to go to the zoo? Yeah! All right, let's get going, Adam. What do you say?
Yeah!
It was a foggy morning, kind of dreary out, and we were hoping that the rain would hold off for us, just so that we could enjoy the day without getting drenched at the zoo. The forecast showed that it was going to be kind of cloudy and comfortable out, not too hot. And we just really wanted that rain to hold off, and thankfully it ended up being a lovely day. What we find is it is best for us as a homeschool family to enjoy places like zoos and museums and parks after all of the public school and private school kids go back to school in the fall. So the end of September, beginning of October is a great time to visit the zoo. It's less crowded because most children are back in school. We can count this as a homeschool field trip. Because the weather isn't as hot, we find that a lot of the animals are much more active at the zoo in the fall when it's a little cooler like this. So we get to interact with the animals a little more because they're up and moving around, instead of when you go in the height of the summer when it's really hot out. A lot of times the animals are just kind of laying in the shade during the middle of the day to try to keep cool. So we really enjoy these zoo trips when we get to go in the fall. We try to make it happen once a year, and then usually in the spring before the traditionally schooled children get out of school, we'll go back one more time just to kind of hit the zoo before the crowds get too big. I thought it was important to show you guys this day off the homestead because I do a lot of documenting the things that we do, the projects we do on our homestead, and I rarely take the camera with me on the times that we go off the homestead to do these fun trips. And I don't want to portray that our life is all work with no fun. We definitely take advantage of any opportunity that we can to get out with the children, see the world, experience things, go on field trips that are educational and will enhance their homeschool education. And so I just wanted to document a day like this for you to show that these are the kinds of things that we do as a family. Now, when you are a homesteading family, it isn't simple to leave for the day. There are some things that you have to do to prepare. Like I said, for us, eating home cooked meals is very important because of food allergy issues and things. So there is meal prep that needs to happen. But besides that, the homestead itself needs to be prepped in order for us to be gone for a whole day. We have to work our trips around chore times and things, make sure that we get back in time to deal with the afternoon chores for our animals, or line up somebody else that could come over and help us do that. And so while it isn't simple for a large homesteading family to leave and do these kinds of things, it is possible, and we try to do it as often as we can. Our children are homeschooled, and we are part of several homeschool groups and co-ops where we do get together with other children and we go on field trips. We rarely do big field trips like this that are kind of far away going to the zoo, but we try to do trips to museums and businesses and fun things happening more locally to us that we can do with our local homeschool friends. And something else to consider when you have little babies and taking trips like this is dealing with naps when you have little ones. And thankfully, Miss Hannah here is a great napper. If you just put her in a carrier and have her on your back, she will sleep through it and still get that nap in. and then she won't be cranky. And then little Benjamin, who is 3 years old, we can just put him in the stroller, push him around, and if he gets sleepy during nap time, he can just shut his eyes in the stroller for a little bit. But he was very into everything that was going on around him and didn't get a chance to have a nap like Miss Hannah did and ended up just sleeping on the drive home. So we had a blast this day, and I just wanted to take you along and show you what we were doing, show you some of the food that we take with us on trips like this. And I hope you enjoyed this little peek into our fun day off the homestead. We'll be back Sunday with more information with things happening on the homestead. Until then, I hope you're having a great week, friends. Bye.